Vinny Rinaldi, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to start with Super Bowl because you are here for that. You have a big spot for Reese's and you're doing a bunch of IRL activations. Talk to me about what's going on.
Yeah, so we did this for our first time last year. We announced a new product in Reese's Caramel. We saw tremendous success coming right out of that. The ad scored so high that we weren't used to. Like, we've never done these things. That was our first time. Or first time in a while, really. And we've sporadically done these, and we wanted to build on that momentum, have another year that we're now launching Reese's Lava Big Cup. And we use that as like a momentous occasion to do at the Super Bowl. But what we've never really done is surround the game, kind of the game within the game, be in the moment, be in real life, really do integrated content well on top of the ad. And that's kind of why we're all here. There's a big contingent of us here. We're doing, a bunch of different things where we've got a new partnership with New Heights podcast and the Kelsey brothers. We're doing a bunch of integrations with the Barstool team all over the week here, all over their shows live. There's volcanoes everywhere in town.
That's amazing. That's so cool. I haven't seen any yet, but I'll keep my eyes peeled.
You have to go to the Barstool house.
Okay, great. What do people not understand about Super Bowl? Because it sounds have an ad in the Super Bowl sounds like the pinnacle of a marketer's dream. But I'm sure there's a lot behind the scenes that happens that's quite filled with headaches. And talk to me about what it's really like doing this.
We start this planning almost a year ago. Coming out of the last Super Bowl, it's like, all right, are we doing it again? Great. What are we doing? We've got product launches. You have to go through the process. Okay, great. Then, Ryan, who's my counterpart on our creative side, is, okay, should we go with the same agency that built this, which we did? And going through all these motions. Once you get there, it's like, okay, now you actually have to build the ad and go through the process and really understand and test it. And, we did a lot of different animatronics testings to see what resonates with people. When you go through, when we first started this, there was probably 15 different scripts of different ways in. So to sort through that, to really hone in on, okay, what are your top 5? What are your top 3? How do you get to that moment? It takes a lot of time.
Absolutely.
But it's also a lot of fun to see the different ways you can bring a brand to life. But once you get there and you start to build it, then comes the planning part. Not just buying the game. When you're doing this surround, you've got, 7 different teams all trying to come together, multiple agencies, both creative agency, media agency, PR agency. And I feel like we don't have it perfect. The process is hard.
Yeah.
It feels like we're scrambling at all times, but in a good way, because we are in such lockstep. And I was talking to somebody this morning about, it's the first time I really spent a lot of time with our PR team in town, PR agency, I should say. The way that they've integrated into our new relationship with Publicis and the way that they, integrated with the creative agency to bring this to life has been above and beyond our expectations, and really shows what an integrated agency ecosystem looks like.
That's great.
So
does it help that you were on the agency side?
A little bit.
Yeah.
What goes into it. When you talk through what the agencies bring you, why they're bringing it to you, to teams internally, to not just shoot it down right away, to think through it. There's a reason behind it. It doesn't mean you have to do it. But let's really dig in, ask questions, learn from each other, and figure out what the right way to bring this whole thing to life is.
What does success look like? If you're is it actual candy bars sold, product sold?
That, at the end of the day, our job is to grow sales. Period. End of story. But, for this, the momentum on the brand, how does not just launching Reese's Caramel or Reese's Lava this year, Caramel last year, what does it do for the core business? Does it bring people to the Reese's brand? Do we grow share? Are we growing household penetration with a new category of buyers, which is, at the end of the day, it's on a 3-year average, Reese's has an 80% household penetration. So it's hard to keep growing that.
Yeah.
But also...
Is that in the U.S.?
That's in the U.S. Okay. But you want to stay as relevant as possible with the same people so they don't lose sight of, the brand itself. And it's obviously feels very easy, but sometimes it's not. So when we look at success, last year we looked at literally what happened the next day from just a sales perspective in some of our biggest stores. And the spike was through the roof, which was really cool to see because does it really have an impact? At first, I'm like, why are you asking me if it worked? It's literally 12 hours later.
Right.
But within 24 hours, the spike in sales was massive.
That's crazy.
So that was cool to see. And then how do you play the long game with that too? Because you don't want to just say sales overnight. What about brand over time? What's it doing for the Reese's brand? So it started to engage new consumers. It brought to life a lot of the integrations we're doing this year from our measurement last year. So I think we're just going to keep doubling down and see what success really looks like as we broaden what the Super Bowl means to us.
Very cool. You have been at Hershey's for a while. You also were on the agency side a bit, and you've been on some of the platform side. So you've had like a long career in media. Yep. What led you back to Hershey, and how did you kind of get to the decision where you are today?
Yeah, when I first went to Hershey, it was probably one of the most pivotal decisions I made, because not only was I going from, where I grew up in New Jersey, moving to Pennsylvania, being at a brand which I was like, I don't even know CPG well, I'm never going to succeed. This is going to be really hard. But I loved that challenge side of it. And then in between stints, I was running investment at Wavemaker and kept very in close touch with my predecessor, who's still there. And he and I spoke a lot and often. He was like, "Would you ever come back?" And what I missed and loved so much is the iconic brands, the culture we've built as a company, the nature and premise of who our founder was, and like really what we've built as an organization. Like that was special. You don't realize it sometimes until you leave it. So I came back, and it's probably been the best decision I've made.
What lessons do you think that you've had to learn sitting where you are today versus when you started out?
Patience is probably the biggest one I've had to learn, in a good way and a bad way. You go through cycles where you feel like you're not creating momentum, nothing's happening. I want out, I want to go do this, I want to go do that. And when you stay patient and you realize, sometimes I take a step back and I analyze the things that we're doing as a team. And in the day-to-day, it feels hard. It feels like we're moving a rock up a mountain. And then I take a step back and I go spend time at industry events and I hear from others. And I'm like, wow, we're actually really at the tip of the spear. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And realizing that and giving yourself patience for letting things play out and really build momentum around within an organization that's as iconic and long-lasting as Hershey's has been one of my biggest lessons of like staying true to what you believe in, but working through the process, being a partner, being very collaborative internally. Patience has been the biggest key, as well as listening.
Okay. Yeah. Listening is a good one.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've had to take some big swings at any point in your career?
Yeah, I think just going from, when I was at Google back earlier in my career and like on the tech side, I kind of kept going back and forth. Like the buy side seems fascinating. I had never been there yet. And I got a call to go to Dentsu Aegis and work within the programmatic group there. And I was like, am I really going to leave Google? Am I really going to do this? Like, should I? But the buy side fascinated me so much. It honestly was probably the biggest swing I took to leave the amazing company that Google is. It really, truly is one of the best places I've ever worked. To go into this new world, to look at what agencies were. I'd never been at one. We were just talking about it before. Like, agencies are hard. They're great. They have so much on their plate. But everyone's trying to figure it out still, and still to this day. But that was probably one of the bigger swings to leave Google and go to the buy side.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that ultimately, looking back, like if people come to you and ask for advice, like, hey, Vinny, you have an amazing career. I'd love to be where you are someday. Can you give me some advice on what I should be thinking about as a young person?
Yeah, I think what excites you, what gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, what are you passionate about? Like, so many times I wear my heart on my sleeve in a passionate way because I believe there's such a greater good and a better way in from a buy-side perspective. Mm-hmm. So every day I want to learn more. I want to go drive more and change things. And that's also hard.
Yeah.
But like, it's what wakes me up every day. It's why I come to work every day. It's what gets me moving. So I think early on, it's hard to find that. You're trying to figure it out. Where do you want to lean into? I also think getting a mentor early is really important. And every time I've questioned something or had something, I have somebody to go to.
Yeah.
And he's been an incredible person in my life, both personally through work. My kids know, my family's been to his house. Mm-hmm. So he guides me in a lot of different ways of like, be patient. This is what's happening. So it's really nice, which is not everybody has that.
Yes.
And it's something I didn't have for a while, and then I found it, and I'm like, oh, this is what everybody meant.
Yeah.
So I do think leaning on somebody that's been around, been experienced, has seen things is really important.
You talked about like having a level of curiosity and wanting to wake up every day and be excited. What do you think that's just naturally you? Like that's how you wake up every day?
It's funny. A week ago, my wife and I were talking about this because my son, like, doesn't stop asking questions always. And she's like, where, this is crazy. And I said, as I think back, and it's something she didn't even know about me, but it triggered me when we were talking. My 8th grade graduation, my English teacher gave me a Curious George book. And I was like, random, I'm 14 years old. And she was like, you are the most inquisitive child I have ever taught.
Wow.
And I want you to have this book as a reminder to never stop being curious, keep asking questions.
That's cool.
And I never really thought about that until a week ago when my son was going on.
That's
and on
amazing.
And on.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's actually true. I did get that book. So
does that port over to your personal life too, beyond work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about a lot of things.
What do you think about when you're not thinking about marketing and media?
And chocolate.
Chocolate.
I think I love sports. I coach my son in hockey, so I'm curious about, I actually have been very curious lately about youth sports, seeing what's happening in the world with kids. It's become, a very interesting world of one-on-one skill training and not as much team and camaraderie. And, one of the things I take away from being an athlete my whole life through college was being part of something is so much bigger than being yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't think it's resonating as much with kids anymore. So as I'm coaching youth sports and seeing all this happen, I'm kind of very curious why.
Yeah.
I haven't found the answer yet, but
it seems different too than I don't know about how you feel about this, but when I was younger and playing sports, it seems different today and more serious than when it was when we were kids. I was just whatever, go out.
7, and they're like, where's he going? I'm like, what do you mean?
Right. It's maybe a little intense.
Literally 7.
Yeah.
It's a journey. These kids have such a long way to go.
Yeah. I did read a stat that 94% of female executives in the C-suite have played team sports.
Yeah. And I don't think that's surprising. I even say to my daughter, my sons, I don't care if you're the best. I care that you learn something. You learn how to be part of a team.
Yeah.
You show up and give effort every day. It's the number one thing I talk to my son about is I don't care if you don't score a goal. I don't care if you don't pass the puck to somebody and get an assist. That doesn't bother me. What effort you put in bothers me. It's the only time I'll get upset with you. Put in effort, show you care.
Yeah.
Even if you don't even feel 100%, put in 100% of whatever effort you can give. And I think that goes a long way of why teams are really important to be a part of. And it does translate later in life more than I think people realize into culture, into how you build culture with your own teams. So I'm just that's something I'm very piqued by right now with kids and when you're thinking about how to train them in a way to grow up with this mentality of being a part of something bigger and not yourself.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. How do you find, we work in these crazy environments, we're traveling all the time, it's a little bit mental. How do you find peace and quiet?
I probably don't nearly enough. Something I realize more of lately is even though I'm on the ice coaching my son, the moments I'm on the ice, I feel more peace and quiet because I'm not in this swing of a work life,
checking your phone,
the balance of the kids and getting them everywhere. We're just in the moment. I'm on the ice, he's playing, and I'm kind of just at this peaceful time. But going back to my mentor, he literally right before I left for this trip was you have to find 20 minutes a day for yourself. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
Just think, meditate, nothing. 20 minutes.
That's really good advice. Yeah. Because
it's hard.
It is really hard. And you have to be very thoughtful about it. Otherwise, you just get wrapped into the tornado.
Yep.
Cool. Is there anything else I should ask you about that I didn't hit on?
No, I think I'm going to go hit on a few of those things on stage.
Amazing. Well, congratulations on the spot this week. I'm excited to see what you guys do. And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.